Welcome back to New Jersey Power and Politics. I'm Jim McQueenie. When it comes to politics, excessive bravado can work for or against you. Some say it's working to the governor's political advantage, but for Congressman Anthony Weiner, it led to a colossal downfall. Here to hash out their respective political personalities with us is Dr. Bart Rossi, well, our political psychologist, I guess, here, right? That would be the right to do that, right framing for that. Let's talk about Anthony Weiner here. When we talk about what leads to something, that makes everybody go, why? You know, they're just completely befuddled. Give us your view of why.
Well, realistically, everybody has different sides to their personality. None of them are perfect. Nobody's perfect. We all have different aspects to who we are. And with Anthony Weiner, we have a side that needs this affirmation from women. Therefore, he sent out these pictures, lewd pictures, did this sexting, and it superseded anything and everything in his being, to the point of which it became what psychologists call a personality disturbance. So one aspect or one feature of his personality became predominant, and then it took over, and it resulted in him really risking his whole career, his family, and risking everything for something that bizarre.
Are these circumstances propelled more when you're in a position, whether it's corporate or politics, but he was in politics, of power infused, if you will, or powered by power on here, that makes this more of a likelihood among politicians?
I think that's a great point, because I think it is a factor. How big a factor, I'm not sure, but it is a factor where they think they're powerful, they think that they can get away with things that they really can't. I mean, on one hand, he was smart enough to know that he might get caught, but he was dumb enough to actually do it. So it's really something where he probably believed that he could get away with it because of his powerful position to some extent.
Well, is it a personality disorder with all? Because with so many politicians I've met over the years, a lot are normal, but a lot of them do, to use your phrase, really do think they can get away with it. Is it a psychosis or something, or is it just aggression?
Well, I think it's a quest, and with many politicians, it's a quest for power. And that's why we see so much corruption in New Jersey, people getting caught in these stings. It's really about a side of their personality where they really want to get to the next level, the next office, and therefore they'll do anything for money and power. And with Anthony Weiner, it was a little different. It was sexting because he needed an affirmation from women. And when certain aspect of your personality becomes so dominant, so overwhelming, then we do have what should be treated as a personality disorder. And I think we've seen that with some of our politicians. You know,
you saw the tapes on the recent round of indictments and things and charges here when Christie was Attorney General. You saw people at those tables discussing the money. They seemed normal, the politicians discussing money that they were about to be bribed with. They didn't seem powerful. It seemed almost boring in some ways, casual at a diner counter and stuff like that. It seems out of sync if you're really driven and powerful.
Well, two things. First of all, a lot of these folks do have some very positive features to their personality. Some of them you can get along with, you can like them, but then there's a dark side where they need this money and power. And I think that's where that comes from. You know.
Well, how about where it's worked? We said at the open here, where, for instance, an aggressive personality of the present governor, Governor Christie here, you know, it seems to have served him well. For instance, polling with men, he's doing very well polling with men. With women, he's polling not as well. In fact, underwater, meaning women dislike that approach here. But also on a call-in show the other day, most recently, he told a caller who asked about his kids and where they went to school and a question like that, and he basically said, MYOB, mind your own business.
That's what he said.
Said it on there. On that. And in fact, on the Today Show he was on, and Matt Lauer, even after this had happened, expressed some disbelief. How can you say something like that? What's that about?
Well, a couple things. First of all, I think it was deliberate. They couldn't really understand what her first name was, so he had time to respond.
Welcome back to New Jersey Power and Politics. I'm Jim McQueenie. A favorite Christie-related topic of politicos everywhere. Will he or won't he run for president, run for re-election to governor? Well, Dr. Bart Rossi thinks he's sending subliminal signals out there. If no one else is picking them up, Dr. Bart says he is, as a psychologist, I always want to say psychologist, putting his focus on politicians. What are you seeing here or hearing that no one else is seeing about the governor here? He might be sending signals behaviorally in what he says and in his style that are auguring anything about what he's going to do in the future.
Actually, I pick up quite a bit. I think on his personality, I think he's projecting himself as someone who's very calculating and very domineering, as we know. And I think he's projecting himself out way beyond this election, re-election for governor. And my own
So
view
you think
here,
he's going to run for president, or you think he's true to his word? Do you think he's going to run for re-election, which he hasn't really expressed anything on?
he will not run for presidency now. That
Okay.
will not
So
happen.
he
in
said
my
that
view.
too, so he's consistent with what he
I
said.
think he's being very consistent. and
Okay, but
that's
what
not gonna
about
happen.
re-election as governor?
I do not think, believe it or not, I do not think that he is going to run for re-election. I think his message, with his body language, with his comments, and how he presents himself, and his personality, is that why should he go for re-election and risk something when he could position himself to be perhaps the front runner for 2016, or perhaps be the biggest player in the Republican Party post this 2012 election?
What's he risk if he wants to run for re-election as governor?
Losing. He does not want to be a loser. His personality
He's already
type,
lost a freeholder race, so he's already through that threshold. Why is that painful?
the freeholder race is in the rear view mirror,
Okay.
and that's nothing to think about. But when you're governor, that's a big deal here in New Jersey. Most powerful position perhaps in the country as governor. But he does not want to be a loser. And I think that he's done some things very, very well. I think he's given a message to all of us that he's playing to his base. His base supporters, or would-be donors, Iowa in particular, as well as New Jersey, they like him. They like this slap down, put down, almost abrasive, bully-like style, and he plays it up. And he plays to his constituency very, very well.
But rigidly, and I'll go back to what you just said before, you say he doesn't want to lose, okay? Is that a factor in why he might not want to compromise as much and why he gets criticized for his failure to compromise on things like this? Obviously, the Democrats are saying this on it as a partisan thing, but you see a lot where he's reluctant to
Right.
sacrifice principle, which is why he's popular national. When you see this here, is that related to what you might think is his desire not to lose at all costs, and talking and compromising might degrade that?
I think that the lack of compromising in Christie is really a basic part of his personality. He is basically one of those guys who wants it his way. It's not exactly my way or the highway, but it's pretty close to that. And he's very domineering, calculating, thoughtful, and I don't think a person like this is really going to set himself up, especially with sinking poll numbers, to perhaps lose. And then there's a third factor, moderates and independent voters in New Jersey. Those people have personality types, in my view, who want to like the person. And with Christie right now, his poll numbers, and you have polling experts on the show all the time, I think they're correct. People really don't like him personally. And you can like him as a political figure and vote for him if he's really successful. If he has property taxes down in the next 2 years to 10% or 15%, that's a big deal.
Right.
Then I'll change my mind. But I don't see that
Because he
happening.
will feel he will not lose if he really gets property taxes lower, right?
Right.
So he then might reconsider and run for re-election with that. If he sees it's not going to
right.
happen, and you're saying he will not run because that's too high a risk to take to lose, and you say he does not want to lose psychologically.
Exactly. I
But
don't
what
think
politician wants to lose psychologically?
But what does he have to lose? He also has to say he can declare victory in New Jersey and move on to the national scene. He is perfectly positioned with his personality and his thoughtfulness and the way he is so calculating that he can move into center stage nationally. So he's not losing anything. He's just moving forward on a national stage, which I think his personality type tells us
Let me
he
ask
wants.
you, Dr. Bart, here, a quick question. A columnist wrote in a newspaper yesterday that perhaps the asthma attack that he had was triggered by excessive exertion, if you will, and that's brought on by how much he's exerting himself going around, doing all these events around the country, plus running the state, plus having a family on this type of thing. How much stock do you put in some of these political analysts who say, who speculate that that's really been triggered by this excessive exertion that's going on that happens to be politically driven?
Right, I think that's overplayed. I think, we don't have perfect people. Nobody's perfect, even health-wise, and certainly Christie isn't the picture of health. But nonetheless, I think that we give him a pass on that, and he didn't feel well, and that's part of the way he is and his condition. But I don't think there's any big deal there.
So in that case, the analysts are way off base.
I think they're overstating something. I think
Okay,
they're
all right, very good. Dr. Bart with us on this. All right, that's going to be doing it for this week. I'm Jim McQueenie, and we thanks for watching New Jersey Current Politics, and hopefully we'll see you next week. All right, thanks.
Hey, Far Hill.